Hey, what's up, Swits? It's week 1 of the PTS and there's a lot happening. This patch has some crazy quality of life updates coming, such as targeting markers and armory stations for PvP zones. But I wanted to talk to you guys today about the huge update coming out for Tales of Tribute. Alright, I don't think it's a secret that not everybody is pleased that the only new gameplay coming out with this patch, outside of the usual quests and furniture, is an update to Tribute. But Tribute has grown a bit stale recently. We've had reduced turnout for our guild events, and I haven't been playing nearly as much as I used to. So these new updates give Tribute a much needed shot in the arm, alongside a lot of quality of life updates to keep me very excited for this new DLC. So moving on to the updates, keep in mind this video was filmed during week 1 of the PTS for update 36, so a lot is subject to change. Take everything with a grain of salt, or several. First of all, you'll finally be able to skip the Tribute tutorial if you've already completed it, meaning that you don't have to sit through 20 minutes of NPC dialogue just to play a game that you already know how to on all of your alts. There's also a few new rewards being added, including some beautiful new tapestries as well as a new outfit style in the reward coffers. Next, let's talk about what's changing for the current range of decks. Starting with Regine, he only has one card being changed, and that's Grand Larceny. Larceny is seeing its gold gain drop from 5 gold to 4, but also getting a combo 2 ability that will cost your opponent 1 prestige. I like this change a lot. Larceny is a pretty insane card that lets you buy whatever you want the turn that it comes out of your hand, and likely still will, but now you're also encouraged to build into the anti-prestige combos of Regine. Hlalu also sees only one card being changed with an update for currency exchange. Currency exchange sees another nerf, going from 5 gold down to 4, and letting you only trade out 1 card from the tavern instead of the current 2. Similar to the Larceny change, this is still an insanely powerful card in a very powerful deck that's not going to be hurt at all by this change. The real power of this card is in its Tithe-like effect, letting you call on an extra patron the turn that you play it and steal patron advantage. 4 gold, in addition to anything else you're going to be playing from your hand, will likely let you buy whatever you want from the board, so it's not going to hurt this deck. Hoon Ding is getting a swath of changes across a number of cards. First up, Conquest and Hero's End both see nerfs to their power generation on their combo plays, both being reduced by 1 power. Warrior's Wave, on the other hand, is losing its Acquire 4 option and instead generating 3 gold. These changes see Hoon Ding lose a considerable amount of power generation. Still not sure how I feel about these changes, as Hoon Ding's power generation was strong, but still largely outclassed by more powerful generating decks. For a hybrid deck, players are going to have to rely more on its deck stacking and side economy to support more power generating avenues going forward. Lastly, we come to Orgnum, which sees some huge nerfs. Yes! Yes! I haven't kept my disdain for this deck a secret. I really hate it. And to echo what I've said a dozen times on this channel, I don't actually think it's that powerful. More than anything, I just really want to see this deck get a complete overhaul, but I'll settle for these nerfs. While we didn't get an overhaul here, the deck should at least be less frustrating to play against, which also hopefully means that it gets picked less. But that's enough subjective ranting, let's go ahead and talk about the nerfs themselves. First and foremost, the cost to use the Orgnum power when you are unfavored has gone down by 1 gold. This might seem insignificant, but this is actually huge, as the first player to activate the patron ability now has to be very confident that they actually want to start the tug of war. Normally, you have to make sure that you have enough card advantage over your opponent to actually begin the test of wills to make sure that you weren't coming out behind on the power gain battle. Now it's also going to be even cheaper for your opponent to prevent the Orgnum patron snowball, meaning that they can continue to build their deck and their economy in the early turns. 1 gold might not seem like a lot in those other nerfs that I talked about earlier, but I can't overstate how much this is going to affect Orgnum's early game plan. And speaking of Orgnum's patron power, the card he generates for players for free if they let him snowball is getting worse. Boarding Party now only gives 1 prestige on the play and requires you to combo 2 to get the other one. It's the same for its upgrade Somerset Sacking. Playing against Orgnum is a race, and every speed bump that slows down his prestige gain hurts really badly, so this is another seemingly small change, but that's actually a huge hit for Orgnum players. To quickly go through the remainder of the changes, Serpent Guard Rider now generates 2 power on the play, but can only replace 1 card from the tavern instead of 2. This is definitely a buff. Orgnum doesn't interact much with the tavern, though this is a card that a lot of players pick up early, and now will help make up for some of the power that they lost elsewhere. Snakeskin Freebooter got a single gold price reduction. This shouldn't make a huge impact, as Orgnum can't often afford to pick him up at 6, and likely won't continue to do so at the lower price, since they have to pay for a 3 gold tax each turn for their patron power. I'm not 100% on these changes either. I would really like to see Orgnum's actual tavern cards get more of an improvement, while its patron power needs to be nerfed or entirely reworked. I think Orgnum is going to really hurt this patch, and while I don't think it's as strong as a lot of the other decks out there, I'm not going to be shedding any tears for it either. Okay, so let's talk about the real deal, the reason you clicked on this video. Let's talk about that shiny new patron. Let's talk about the Druid King. So besides having the best art of any of the patrons in the game so far, Druid King is another combo deck similar to Crow's, but that also focuses on the importance of sequencing cards. Starting with the patron power, Druid King costs 2 power to activate and has varying abilities based on his current favor. If you're unfavored, he will simply allow you to remove 2 cards from the tavern, similar to cards like Barterer. If he's in the neutral position, he does the same effect, but if you manage to combo 5 in the same turn, you'll also get a Chimera added to your cooldown pile. The same is also true if he's favored, but this will only require 4 combo instead. Okay, but what does the Chimera actually do for you?
You are now entering the Chimera's Keep.
The Chimera is a 5 health taunt agent that has no effect on the play. For combo 2, you can remove 1 card from the board similar to Barter. For combo 3, you gain 2 power, and for combo 4, you gain 3 prestige. This is a really cool patron power, as you'll need to be heavily invested in Druid King cards to start acquiring Chimeras. But once you do, you'll likely be gaining all the benefits of the Chimera cards, as well as setting your opponent back behind a 5 health shield that's going to be giving you power generation required to keep activating Druid King for even more Chimeras. DK's basic card is a standard 1 gold basic. Moving on to Vestments of the Druid King, we see the first instance of the new While in Play factor. This instance of While in Play affects whenever cards enter your cooldown pile, either from your hand or from your deck. For Vestments of the Druid King, this card gives you 2 gold no matter what when it's played. Then for each card you play after it, and it even counts itself, it'll generate you 1 power. So you can see here why sequencing matters with this deck, as playing this card first out of your hand on a basic turn means that it's going to generate you 2 gold and 5 power for a 2 cost card. That's an insane value card. In fact, it's probably too powerful. The downside is that if you draw this card later in a turn, say off a harvest season, it's only going to generate you 2 gold and 1 power. Still, this card is outrageously strong in its current form. And for any of you Psijic players out there, yes, stacking your deck does count as cards going to the cooldown pile, so that can be really effective, as we'll talk about later on. Next up is a contract card, Whispers of the Grove. For 2 gold, you can remove 1 card from the tavern, and if you combo for 3, it generates you 2 gold, meaning that it can pay for itself. This is a super cheap combo enabler in a combo deck that doesn't have the card draw potential Duke of Crows does, so this is a really good card for what it does. Wisp Collar Totem is our next card at 3 cost, giving you 1 gold on the play, 2 more on the combo 2, and 3 more on the combo 4 for a potential 6 gold. Very spicy. Deep Woods Ritual is a 4 cost card that generates 2 power on the play, lets you replace a card from the tavern on combo 2, and on combo 3 nets you 3 prestige. This is likely going to be one of your go-to prestige generation cards for a Druids focused deck. This next card is an absolute kill on sight card. Forest Wraith is a contract agent that generates 1 power on the play and gives 2 power whenever it or any other cards are placed in your cooldown pile. This is a really interesting card in that it costs 4 to acquire, but you'll want to buy it before playing your entire hand if possible to gain more power from its static effect. Druid King players, be warned, this card is insanely good no matter who plays it, as it doesn't need any combo to be effective. If you give this card to a Duke of Crows player, you will die. This card has to be taken out immediately, as if it survives even 1 turn, your opponent is going to gain a minimum of 10 power next turn, and that's a minimum. Fortunately, it's at least a contract agent and won't be coming back once it's dealt with, but oh my god, this card. Next, we're looking at Firesong Haruspex. It's our next agent at 5 gold. I like this card a lot, as it's one of our first agents we've seen that cares about other agents entering the field. On the play, it generates 1 power, and while it's hanging out, it will give you more prestige every time another agent enters the cooldown pile. I'm not too worried about this card on the surface, as it doesn't seem like it's going to be doing that much, but in a cheap agents deck like Regine, where you can pair it with some of the very cheap shadows, could be a very good pickup. Speaking of agents, another 5 cost agent is Stonelore Rockseer, who generates 1 power on the play and gives you a coin each time an agent is activated. So now we're talking. I'm all in for Agents Tribal, and that could mean a billion gold and a heavy Regine combo deck, and I love that. The upgraded version, Envoy of Drafe, he gets 1 more health than the basic. Eldertide Fenwitch is our next agent, clocking in at 6 gold. Elder Tide generates 1 gold on the play and gives you 1 gold whenever a card enters your cooldown. And for 2 combo, it generates a Wisp Collar Totem, the combo heavy gold generator we spoke of earlier. The improved version gives you 2 gold whenever cards hit the cooldown pile. Another really good agent that just wants to see you play a lot of cards and has further incentive to splash into the DK deck for low combo number bonuses. And that's it. That's all the new cards coming out with this deck. But we're not done yet. Let's take a quick moment to talk about some strats with the new deck. First of all, this is a combo heavy deck, and some of you might rightly be comparing these cards directly with Duke of Crows. However, they're very different. As mentioned previously, Druid doesn't have the draw capability that Crows does, so getting those higher combo numbers is going to be much more difficult with this deck than a potential 12 cards Crow turn. Also, it's important to note which cards in this deck don't require combo to be effective. So first off, one way to build this deck is to lean very heavily into the combo potential by pairing it with Red Eagle. Red Eagle lets you eliminate a lot of the basic cards from your deck so that you can build around a combo heavy side of the deck and take advantage of the amazing patron power with its combo power. This strat will be able to churn out those insanely powerful Chimera agents and get their full ability suite each turn. Another very strong companion for the Druid King, probably too strong, is the Psijic deck, because all those cards stacking abilities puts cards directly from your deck into the cooldown pile, meaning they get to trigger all the Druid King effects. It's gross. Druid King will absolutely explode with Psijic's deck manipulation effects. Another potential route that I think is just really cool is to build around Agent Tribal, meaning stacking as many agents as you can to benefit from the powerful agents in Druid King's deck. I would probably pair this build with Regine for the low cost agents who will be removing your opponent's prestige while you play the long game building economy and removing power from your opponent. Hlaalu also has a lot of strong agents and will give you insane economy potential with the Druid King deck to buy whatever you want and utilize Hlaalu's patron power to generate power. Lastly, you can just use Druid King as a supplement to other decks. As mentioned previously, if you're playing standard Duke of Crows strategy and you manage to pick up a Forest Wraith, then combo off, playing like let's say 12 cards in a turn, that's 24 power you just gained off a 4 cost contract agent. But even smaller pickups like a Stray Vestments of the Druid King or any card that just cares about cards entering cooldown this turn are going to be huge pickups for a Crows deck. Lastly, for strategies to counter the potential Druid King players out there, well, it's the exact same thing. You just need to be aware of what cards from Druid King can offer you that will benefit your strategy without having to build a deck around the combo pieces. Also, just be aware of when your opponent is starting to reach consistent combo numbers, as allowing them to generate a Chimera each turn is likely going to seal the game for them. Druid King can't snowball in the same manner as Orgnum due to the combo requirement on their patron ability, but in the late game it's going to be a very powerful tool for them, so keep an eye on their combo numbers and play smart. But that's it. I hope you enjoyed this long video this week. It's a really exciting time to be a Tribute player. If you like this video, consider checking out the full Tribute playlist on my channel. And if you don't mind, consider subscribing. I put out at least 1 Tribute video a month. But with all that out of the way, until we meet again on the plains of Vardenfell, I've been Old Salty Sean, aka Dalron Telvanni, saying smoke skooma and worship Daedra.
Stand up. There you go. You were dreaming.